Hello everyone, Artist Charles Wolf here, back again for another painting lesson. Today's going to be a little bit different than normal. I'm actually going to be doing an oil painting for you all. Haven't done one of these in a while, and I forgot how much fun and how easy it is to do oil paintings. The blending on this is just incredible. It's so easy to get nice, smooth washes, capture what you're really going for, and it's so rich and wonderful that I'm just excited to share it with you all today. We're going to start out with some ultramarine blue and some titanium white mixed together. My palette today from left to right is permanent red, Van Dyke brown, lemon yellow, raw umber, raw sienna, titanium white, ultramarine blue, and below in the bottom right I have some liquid white. Liquid white is a flow medium that helps for blending and smoothing things along. I'm going to add some here right now and you'll see how quickly it just softens everything. Makes it lighter, makes it run off that brush so smoothly and easily, kind of extends the paint out a bit. This is the same medium that Bob Ross uses in his oil paintings. I really like the product, it works very well. Would recommend using a medium like this. If you don't want to use this sort of medium, you can just add white and a little bit of linseed oil and you get a similar texture and flow to your paints. I've also heard of some artists using white spirits, although I've heard that can have negative health effects. And you also can use almond oil. There's a few other ones as well. Do some research on that. Today I'm using the white liquid medium. It's the same stuff again that Bob Ross uses in his paintings, although this piece is definitely not a Bob Ross piece. My own original composition from a photograph that I took in the Outer Banks of North Carolina. You can see that I have sketched out in pencil my composition today, and that makes painting it so much easier now that I have everything kind of blocked out where it needs to go with the pencil, sketched it all out, then I can very easily just fill in, almost like paint by numbers, the different sections with the correct colors. I'm looking today at my photograph as I'm working, using it as a source of inspiration. I'm not too tied down to making the colors perfectly match. I'm allowing the paint sort of to guide me where I want to go. I keep everything in the same vein, of course, but if I make little adjustments here and there, I feel like that's perfectly acceptable, and I'm happy to make sure that I'm getting the impression of the image to my liking. Notice the brush directions. I have a lot of brush strokes kind of coming down from the right to the left. A few coming more straight down, and the other ones are curving back the other way. This is because of my perspective. I have all of my lines kind of moving towards and converging on a vanishing point on the bottom left-hand side of this piece. This is actually happening, that vanishing point, in my photograph, and so I'm going to keep my brushwork to sort of influence and reflect that as well. If you don't really know about single point perspective and how that works, you can watch some drawing videos on the idea. Basically, all the lines in a composition are going to be moving down towards a single point, and the angle at which they hit that point are all very uniform. You can see in the bottom part of this canvas, I have that point. Covering up some of those lines now, putting a little bit of that blue in while I have it on my brush. Today I'm just going to be putting in the sky. Part 2 will show you how to do the water and the beach. Next, I'm going to go into my raw umber, some titanium white, bit of that liquid white there, and some of the ultramarine blue. A nice, very dark gray mix here, very stormy mix. And we're going to put in some very low clouds, a very thick marine layer out in the distance across the water. And there it is. Do be careful when you are working with oil paint. It will stain everything, and I mean stain. If it gets on your hands, it will stay there for a little while. You can quickly wash it off if you get some on you, and it should come off mostly. But you want to put a drop cloth down or some old sheets or something to protect where you are working. If you drop the paint on the carpet, well then now, congratulations, you have painted carpet. We don't want that, so just keep an eye out and definitely put something down on the floor if you're going to be working with this type of paint. Adding a bit more of the liquid white there to soften this left-hand side. And we'll blend it back into the blue. It's so easy to get some wonderful variation in my colors with oil paint. It's a very rich, wonderful medium to work in. Colors are so vibrant they just pop off the canvas. Here is some raw umber and the white, and a little bit of that blue on that dirty brush. And we're going to put in some of these shadow colors of these clouds here. A little more of the white, just lighten that up a bit. There we go. And a little more of the liquid white and raw sienna with that gray mix. And we're going to just put in the smoky background layer here. A little more of that pure raw sienna and white. Blending upwards into that blue already there. Doesn't take much, and suddenly you have wonderful variation of color. And it's catching some of that blue already on the canvas. This is a wet on wet technique. I'm blending my wet colors into other ones to get the transitions to be more seamless. Again, blocking out the different parts of your sky before you start will make putting this in so much faster and easier, and will keep your proportions more accurate. I'll have to do a video sometime on how to use photographs to mark in different parts of the penciling on a canvas. Pencil doesn't show up well on camera, so I'll have to do kind of a close-up thing. I'll have to think about how I can effectively do that, but I should show you all sometime how I go about measuring and getting my lines to be accurate based on a photograph. But today we're going to keep painting here. Here's some permanent red, raw sienna, and white mixture. Get a kind of a coral color going. Very muted color. A little more white. And we're going to blend this color right over the top of that blue, sort of bleeding over, a touch more of the red there. Oil paint is really cool because the bottom color, if you put it dark enough, will stay visible. And you can just gently, if you have a thinner paint, place it on top of the thicker paint below. Very, very easy to use that way and blend things together. And take a little more of the white here. Just cover up what we already have. Again, a thin paint, or paint that is mixed with a lot of my flow medium, will stick to paints that are much thicker underneath. Blending here. Okay, back to my umber blue and white mixture with my 1.5 inch chip brush. These chip brushes are fantastic to use. They are very cheap to buy, like $1 each. You can get them at hardware stores, you can get them at art supply stores. And we're going to put in the clouds here. These are some darker clouds, some shadow colors on these clouds. The sun is down right above that blue marine layer, and it is hitting the front of this layer that's kind of coming over from right to left. But behind there is these dark kind of charcoal clouds back here. We're going to just dash those in. I'm just pressing the bristles firmly into the canvas. You can see I'm getting some color variation because I have some blue on that brush lower down. If I just bend my bristles and allow the blue to touch, it'll make a slight change in variation. Here I'm using just the corner of the brush, and I'm just very lightly just tapping it, really. We can blend that out and make it smoother later. We just need the color to be on the canvas. Very lightly with that, just barely touching the canvas to get those very faint, sort of wispy gray colors. Okay, let's go for some highlights now. Here's some titanium white and some liquid white mixed together, about half-half, and we're using a 1/2" chip brush. These chip brushes can leave a lot of wonderful textures, really allowing the bristles to work, and I'm leaving a good deal of paint on this canvas. You can blend things really smoothly after the fact, but I really like the thicker layers and sections of color when we are working with an oil painting. Having the actual brush strokes very forward and visible in a painting like this is a lot of fun, and it's a really nice feature of this style of painting. I let my brushwork show in my acrylic painting as well, but it's something that's a little bit different when you're working with oil paint. Translates better, I think. Okay, here is a mix of some umber, some sienna, some white, and I'm putting in some lighter shadow colors. I'm using a very tiny bright brush there. Some more of the liquid white and titanium white mixture for some more highlights with my small 1/2" chip brush. That tiny bright brush I was using a second ago, we'll come back to in a minute, is part of a pack of just some cheap brushes that I bought. You can get like 10 or 20 of them in a package for $5, so something like that. I'm just trying to use it today because it's small and it works well for the type of brushwork I wanted. I'm trying to show also that you can really use any type of brush to paint paintings. These chip brushes work just fine. If you know what you're doing with color and you're using good quality paint, the actual brush you use, I find, is not that big a deal. Maybe having a more expensive brush for your blending, getting everything really smooth, but I get great effects without that. And I like my work to have a textured appearance. Having it be a little rougher and looser is not a bad thing. Depends on what you're working for. Some artists swear by natural hair brushes and they swear by this brand or that brand. I use whatever I can get my hands on. I don't tend to favor any one brand of paint, any one brand of brushes. I try to get good quality for not too expensive. That is what I do. Here's that. Again, it's a cheap brush, synthetic brush, but it does some really nice light lines, and if you know how to use a brush, then you can make really anything work. Later on, I'm going to grab a stencil brush. It has a very rounded edge on it, very stiff, and that creates some wonderful cloud effects. Those two little lines I put up above on the sienna, we're going to soften those. They're a little bit too big, they're a little too bright and forward. They need to be a little bit softer. But these over here look great. Liquid white, 1/2" brush. I'm just going to soften this and just blend it out slightly. And that easily, we can just melt it away. And it's gone. So easy. Just move the paint around until it looks correct. Back to my raw sienna and white. A little more of that liquid white. Thin this out. Got a little linseed oil to that. Even thin it out even further. Put a little stroke there and decided to go back to my liquid white. I want to soften it slightly more at the bottom here. Looking at my photograph, it's a little bit lighter. And we'll come back to that in a minute. I want to now bring out some of these thin, wispy clouds. A little more paint on my brush. Good texture. You can see that paint is sticking and rising off the canvas. Thick layers here. There's not a lot of paint in this section. I've left a lot of the canvas showing, so I can use the thicker paint now and then slowly go back over it with some thinner paint, which will adhere nicely to the thicker paint. Fundamental concept in oil painting. I feel like I've learned a lot by practicing over the last year with acrylic paintings. I haven't done oils in a while, and I was surprised at how well they were turning out. I've done 3 oil paintings in the past week. One is 30 by 40 inches. This one is 10 by 20 inches. And the last one I'm working on right now is 20 by 20 inches. There's some liquid white, and just grab a little more of the sienna and a touch of that blue just to mute it. I'm just going to tap here with my 1/2-inch brush, tapping in this lovely, lovely coral color. Beautiful reddish tone to it. Glorious sunrise this morning. It's very cold, I remember. I took these photos. I took about 400 photos on this trip. This happened a couple years ago, and I referenced this set of photos several times now in my paintings, but I've never done an oil version of any of them, and so today we're going to be doing just that. I would love to take another trip to the Outer Banks and get to take some more sunrise photos. It's just so lovely and very inspiring. I'm going to bring some of that coral down below and blend that together. Touch more umber here. A little bit darker, connect the two. We'll soften that up as we go, and just quickly blending this out. It looks a little messy. It's kind of all over the place. It's kind of blocky. Just trying to get the color down, and then we can layer over other colors on top of it, hide it, push it back, soften, those sort of things. Bring some of that coral color over here too, why not? Bring the whole composition together a bit better. Raw sienna, white, umber mix. Lovely coral color. Okay, back to my liner brush with sienna and white. Redefine a few of these strokes through here. Just dash them in, we'll soften those in a minute. We're going to cover a lot of that up with some yellow here in a few. Here we go, just soften them. Just want the color to be there. A little bit of some brush hair got on the canvas. We're just going to flick that off. There we go. Do watch out for these cheaper brushes. They can sometimes flake off and lose bristles. Keep an eye out for that. I'll tell you all a funny story. I was on Facebook on a buy, sell, trade group. Local trade group where you can put items for sale that you want to get rid of, and a woman was on there selling a 48 by 48 inch canvas. Not only that, but it was a gallery wrapped canvas having 1-inch sides, same style as the painting I'm doing right now. This is a 10 by 20 inch canvas that has 1-inch gallery sides, but this bigger one that she was selling was 48 by 48 inches. If you look and go to an art supply store and buy a canvas that size, that's going to run you between $80 to $120 or more dollars. It's quite expensive to buy a canvas that big. So I told her, yeah, I would like to buy this canvas. She was selling it, and get this, for only $20. But the funny thing was I got there to her house to pick it up, and I have a small Ford Fiesta. you ever seen that car? It's quite small, very tiny commuter car, great gas mileage, I love it, but it is a very small vehicle. I get to the house and I forgot to measure the back of my trunk, and I actually have a 40-inch clearance on the back of my trunk, and I was purchasing a 48-inch canvas. I was 8 inches off, and you can see my dilemma. The canvas literally would not fit inside of my vehicle. So I decided to get some tie downs. I was able to tie the canvas by looping through the wooden slats on the back, tie the canvas to the roof of the car, and transported the 10 minutes back to my house that it was, so I didn't have to go very far, but it was quite comical to see my vehicle with the very large canvas, slightly larger than the vehicle actually. Made it home safely, so I had this very large 48 by 40 inch canvas sitting in my studio now. Not sure what I'm going to paint on it. If you have any recommendations or suggestions, I would love to hear them in the comments below. Here is my chip brush with some white mix on it. I'm going to bring some more highlights back here. Very thick layers of paint. I put in some lighter blue mix just to break up those clouds, make it less blocky, with my stencil brush I was talking about earlier. And now we're back to the 1/2-inch chip brush with the white. Part 1 of 2 took about a half hour to paint this portion of the painting, and it'll be about another half hour to finish it, so I decided to break this up into 2 parts. I do have the larger 30 by 40 inch oil painting finished. It's another sunset, beautiful sunset of Lake Champlain in Vermont, where my wife's family is from, and based on a photograph that I took while we were there. Just a very stormy evening over the lake. And I will be sharing that soon, probably next week or the week after, so keep your eyes out for that. I don't know if I'll be doing a painting lesson tutorial video or just doing a time-lapse. Let me know if you would like to see more of these oil painting instructional videos. I'd be happy to do more of them. I'm really loving working with this oil paint. Haven't done it in a while. It's just a joy to work with. So much more vibrant than acrylic paint. Acrylic paint is so matte. It doesn't have the rich pigmentation that these oil paints do. I'm using professional grade oil paints as well. These are not cheap paints I'm using, but they look really, really great. If you're just starting out, some inexpensive paint will do just fine. Use it to practice, get better and get better, and then when you feel ready and confident to do a piece, then get some nicer artist grade, artist quality oil paints. I'll leave the brand up to you. Find something that works well for you and flows well and has a good color and richness to it that you like. I really recommend acrylic painting. It's definitely cheaper. It's a great way to start and practice your color mixing and color blending skills. Blending here softly. And we're going to blend down here with some more of the sienna. Not a lot of paint on the brush. Okay, now some more paint here. Just softening this up a little bit. I brought in that yellow, and I brought in some of the orange. We're going to come back in a minute with a lot more of the white mixed with the yellow and really brighten up the sunrise portion on the bottom of this piece. Here we go, liquid white with lemon yellow, 1/2 inch chip brush. Good deal of the liquid white mixed in because I need the paint to be nice and thin when I apply this because it needs to stick to the thicker layers I already have on the canvas. Here's some titanium white mixed with that. Oops, got a bristle on there. There we go. And here we go. Nice, light, very light lemon yellow with white. Beautiful color. More of the lemon yellow. More pure here. There we go. A little more of the lemon yellow. Blend that through. And a touch of the raw sienna. Soften it on this side. Just dragging those bristles back and forth gently across. Not a lot of paint. Almost dry brushing. Everything just blends together so nicely. A little more sienna over here as well. Really enjoying the muted colors, kind of softer palette. Okay, here's some umber, blue and white mixture. Tiny bright brush again, that very, very inexpensive cheap brush I'm using here. Doesn't matter what brush you're using, just find one that works for you. A little bit of that soft rose mix there. And we're going to put in some of the darker lines back in. Just break up this section, make it less chunky. And as it settles, it will blend together more smooth. And that is the end of part 1. I'll be back with part 2 very shortly, and we'll finish this piece together, putting in the waves and the shoreline.